Are you thinking about building your dream home in the Aledo area? If so, this is the video for you. Now, if this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in the Aledo area, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications to make sure you're the first to know about what's going on in the Aledo area. My name's Jared with Living in Aledo, Texas, and I get calls and texts all the time from people just like yourself who are thinking about moving to the Aledo area, and I love it. So whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. Feel free to reach out however is most convenient. I'm looking forward to helping you make a smooth move to Aledo. All right, today we are going to be covering the 7 steps that you need to know and understand if you are looking at building a home on your own land in the Aledo area. This is not something you've done in the past. This is going to be a lot of information. It's also going to be really fast and kind of an overview. So make sure you stick around, put some comments in the comment section if you have any questions, and let me know if you're thinking about building your own home. Okay, now the very first thing you need to do when planning to build your dream home is really begin with the end in mind. And that means you need to do a lot of brainstorming and discussion around your needs and your desires on the actual home. And then what is your realistic budget going to be? So what does that look like? First, you really need to figure out like the amount of bedrooms and bathrooms. You need to figure out the living spaces, maybe come up with a layout. Do you want a 1-story or a 2-story? You know, for example, me and my wife were looking to buy a lot with an old home that needed to be torn down and build a home on that lot ourselves. And so when we started brainstorming this, we were in a small, 1,500 square foot home that had a 300 square foot converted patio. So it was a 3-bed, 2-bath, just straight up old home from the 1950s. And we knew that wasn't what we wanted long-term, right? So we decided that we really wanted a 4-bedroom, minimum 3-bath home with a couple of living spaces. And it wasn't just that. We wanted to make sure that these beds and baths were laid out in a way that we envisioned our family using them. You know, with 4 bedrooms, what did that mean? Obviously, we got the master bedroom. Then you had 2 guest beds that we could put kids in. And then we wanted a 4th bedroom that might be kind of secluded off to the side to use as a guest bed. And then we also wanted 3 full baths. So you've got the master bath. Then you've got the bath for like the kids' bedrooms, maybe a Jack and Jill, maybe like a share off to the hallway. And then we really wanted that 3rd full bath to be over in the same portion of the home as that 4th bedroom. So whether that was a true ensuite or maybe open up to the living space as a guest bath for the person staying in the room, or there's people hanging out during the day. But we really wanted a setup like that because we envisioned at some point letting people stay in our home for some length of time in some form or fashion. And, that could look different things in different life stages, but we really wanted something that would almost be like a miniature guest suite that someone could kind of have their own bath and not be sharing with the kids. And so then you say, okay, well, what about dining spaces? Do you want just one large dining space, which is kind of the norm in some new homes? Or do you want like a breakfast nook and then a formal dining? Do you want 1 living space? Do you want a 1-story or 2-story? So if you have a 1-story, maybe you have 1 living space. Do you want an office? So like we wanted 4 bedrooms plus an office, 3 full baths. And what that does is it helps you determine really the size of home you need. Because if you've looked at homes in the past, you know that 2,000 square feet properly laid out with no wasted space can feel larger than a 22 or 2,300 square foot home that has really weird layouts or rooms that are oversized or undersized. So knowing the actual rooms that you want in your home, knowing the layout, how you want to use your home is really important. Begin with the end in mind. How do you envision yourself living in that home and using that home? And that's really important because that's going to impact your budget and your pricing. So you might realize that you need at least a 3,000 square foot home. And then what you may realize next is that, hey, you know what? The budget that I have right now actually doesn't fit with building a custom 3,000 square foot home on an acre or 2. So that might help you realize, hey, maybe I need to wait and push this dream home down the road a little while, because you can typically buy a very equivalent home for less than it costs to build it, at least in the market we're in right now. There's been markets in the past where construction wasn't super expensive, and it made sense sometimes to build if you wanted to go that route. But currently in today's market, it might not be. You might be paying a premium. So knowing how many square feet you need, how many garage spaces, detached garage, attached garage, all that stuff is really important so that when you start sitting down to budget things out, you know where you're going to be with that. Not all of these steps you have to do in sequential order, like there's going to be some mixing and matching, because we're going to talk about picking a builder in a minute, but it's really hard to get a budget without talking to a builder. So some of these things are done semi-concurrently, but this is the order that you should be thinking these things through. Again, number one is begin with the end in mind. Figure out exactly what you need in this home that you want to build. Okay, now step number two is picking a builder. And there's actually a lot of different ways you can do this. One, you can go find maybe a semi-custom builder, a builder who's going to come in with a selection of floor plans you can choose from that allow for some modifications or minor variations, and they might have an in-house architect or something like that to help with those modifications. And then you could go with a full custom builder who either has their own architect or has third-party architects that you can work with. And you are going to be responsible for designing everything, the size of the rooms, the heights of the ceilings. You're going to figure out it all out with an architect, obviously, and maybe with help from the builder, but they're going to go full-on custom. You pick everything. The next route is similar to full custom, but you could actually GC the property yourself, where you find all the contractors to do all the different work. I don't think I would be comfortable doing that myself. So unless you have experience building homes in the past, I would highly recommend this not be the route you take. I would highly recommend you work with an established builder, with an established process, and subcontractors are going to do all that work for them, or maybe they're employees that do all that work. And as a part of that, those builders will oftentimes have people in-house that help you design or create those variations. So architects, designers help with those selection processes. So again, like when me and my wife met with a local builder, he had an architect. They said, hey, I can connect you with this person, but hey, let's sketch this out ourselves real quick, see what we think, and then we'll let them draw up the professional plans. So that's something that you can do. And now if you are ever working with a third-party architect, maybe they're not on staff with the builder, you need to make sure that they stay in very close communication with any changes or plans, and make sure that there's not a huge hiccup. So in the past, I've actually represented someone who built a handful of homes. This was not a professional builder. They bought some lots in a neighborhood. This was not in the Aledo area. And then my client was an architect. So he actually designed everything. And then he found a contractor who could build the home. He was dealing directly with this one guy. So this guy was going to be building the homes. He was a contractor or a builder, kind of 6 one way, half dozen the other in that scenario. The homes were complete when I got involved. We were getting them ready to list. And I noticed that there were some closets that were very shallow. And what do I mean by very shallow? I mean that the rod that you would hang your hangers on was about 3 inches from the frame of the door. So the closet was more shallow than the length of a hanger. And I brought this to their attention because I was like, this is crazy. Like, this closet is not usable, and really it should have become like a shelf closet. And what had happened was they made one plan, and then everything got rolling and ready to go. And then they adjusted the plans for the build of that home. Well, somehow this got lost in communication somewhere, and the concrete, like the foundation guy, built and poured the original foundation plan. And then they started trying to build the second plan on that old slab foundation, or the old plan. It was a brand new foundation. And it led to them having to make some really odd adjustments on a couple of things. One being the closets were laid out, a couple closets were like really off and not usable. Really important that designers, architects, and builders and the contractors all stay in alignment, and if any significant changes are made, I would say you should make sure that you're the one that makes sure everyone gets those updates. And then you're also going to need to work with the selection team. So what kind of flooring are you going to put in? What kind of tile? What backsplash? What countertops? What cabinetry? And this is somewhere that you can really change and increase the price of your home, because you might be able to build a 3,000 square foot home for anywhere from $600,000 to $2 million, depending on the level of finish outs that you're going to be installing. So those are conversations that the builder should be able to somewhat assist you with, or maybe give you kind of a range or a package or type of things you should be choosing. But if you start picking out some really high finishes, that's going to increase the overall build cost of your home. But those are important things to start working on. And that is, steps 1 and step 2 can kind of be done together. You just don't want to get too far into the process and realize that the home that you want and that you're willing to build is just out of your current budget. So step number 3 is picking out and purchasing your land. And now there's a whole lot of steps that go into this step alone, and I actually have a video about that. So I'm not gonna spend any time talking about how you need to pick land in this video, because you can just watch my other video about how to buy land. Okay, now you have found that perfect parcel of land in the Aledo area and you are ready to go. So as a part of that, you do want to make sure that a lot of these other items are going to work on that land before you complete the purchase. But for the sake of this video, you have decided that this land works for what you want to do and you have bought it. And now it's time to start the approval processes or permit requests. And now a builder should be able to do a lot of this for you, because there's going to be the utilities that need to be brought in, your septic, your water, your electric. And depending on where you're at, whether if you're out in the country and you're doing a well and septic, that has to go through an approval process. Or if you're in the city, there's going to be tap fees and the approval process to tap into the city lines. So when it comes to like city stuff and that type of permitting, the builder normally is going to handle a lot of that for you. But then the next step of that is if you're building inside a neighborhood with an HOA, you're going to be a lot more involved in that process, because the HOA rules are going to have rules around minimum size requirements, maybe construction materials, roof types, styles. And then you're going to want to make sure really that you get really into it, because that HOA has a lot of, leeway and say about what can and can't be built. Now, let's say you want to do something slightly outside of that. There are approval processes, where you can go through and submit requests. But, I would probably not make that assumption that they're just going to approve whatever you want done. And like I said, you may need to be the primary contact with your HOA, because most in Texas are not too bad. But when it comes to getting things approved, it really helps for them to be talking with the person that it impacts directly. Because if you come in with your home plans and your designs and they're all in accordance and alignment, maybe one thing is slightly off and it's not super important, they're a lot more likely to give you the thumbs up and the green light, because you're going to be their new neighbor, right? As opposed to a builder comes in who doesn't live in the neighborhood, isn't going to live in the neighborhood, and they might be a little more, sticklerish on things, because it doesn't really impact them relationally if the builder has to go back and do some extra work. In reality, you're the one waiting on all this. So you just want to make sure that you know what's coming and you go through the proper approval processes, so you don't start something that then gets halted or stopped or you have to redo after the fact. Okay, so construction can finally begin. And in order to do that, you actually have to get a construction loan. Now, for the sake of this video, again, I'm not going to go into the loan process and how to qualify and get all these loans, but I am going to say, in order for construction to begin, if you're building on your own land, you have to finance that yourself. That's one of the big differences between buying a home from a builder who's going to build for you on their land, is that they'll finance that. Whereas if they're building on your land, you get to finance it. So you've already got your financing all lined up, you're ready to go, and construction begins. They're going to start removing shrubbery, grading the ground. They're going to prep for the slab or the foundation pour. There's different types of foundations. Most likely, you're going to get a slab on grade, which is, a concrete foundation that you're going to build your home on top of. And now, as we're going through the build process, it is important for you to have your own third-party inspections done. Now, especially if you're building in a neighborhood from a builder, they're going to tell you there's no need for this. It's not a big deal. They have city inspectors. They have permit inspectors. They get 15 different inspectors, or they use third-party stuff. You always want to have your own inspector that works for you doing these inspections. So there's inspectors who offer phase inspections, and that's where they inspect at different phases of construction. One typical phase of that inspection period would be before they pour the slab. So you want to have that out, make sure that all looks good to go, and then they're going to pour, and then they're going to start building up. They're going to start building the frame and start putting in some mechanicals, maybe the electrical. They're going to roof the property. They're going to make sure that the plumbing lines are installed. Then the next step or phase for inspections might be pre-drywall. So before they put drywall up, that guy's gonna look inside all the walls to make sure everything's done correctly. Because once the drywall goes up, he can't look inside the walls anymore. So, all that's gonna happen. The interior systems are gonna go in, the water heater, AC unit, and the air ducts and all that stuff. And then once all that's done, then they're gonna start, maybe doing some finishes, maybe the floors, maybe the tile, the backsplashes. And, that's gonna be, most of the work happens up front, and then sometimes it might seem like they're going slow, but you never know what that builder's doing or where his contractors are or whatnot. So the whole house, the whole shell finished, then they'll start on the inside. And typically the last thing to go in is like the floors, the backsplash, and the countertops. Sometimes, when those start going in, you're as little as like 30 days away from closing, depending on the size of the home and maybe what's going on, maybe 30 to 60 days out from closing. So once all that is done, you're gonna do your final inspections. You're gonna have your own inspector come through. He's gonna check everything, check all the plugs and the outlets, check to make sure that there's no leaks in the sinks or the faucets, do a really, really good inspection to kind of make sure it all looks good to go. And then if there's any cities or municipalities involved, then you're going to have them come in and give the green tag. We really don't do a certificate of occupancy technically in Texas, but there are some like green tags and inspections that are done to say that a home is complete if it's inside a municipality. And if it's out in the country, maybe the only thing that you're doing is getting like the septic system, signed off on, or the well. This is kind of a short section, and there's obviously a whole lot of steps, but this video is not about the actual construction of the home. It's just about the overall process. So there's a whole lot of steps. Depending on the builder, this could take 6 months to 12 months of actual construction time, varied on the size and making sure that you have everything lined up and there's no delays in materials. So this is by far the longest, step in the process because it just takes a while to build a house in Texas. Okay, now step number 6 is a small but very important step. And that is going through your property and doing that like final punch list with your builder. And this is one of the big pluses and major draws of going with new construction of any sort, whether you're buying from a builder in a neighborhood or building your own home, is that you get to be really, really picky about touch-ups, paint, nicks, dings, everything. And so, that's something that you don't want to forget to do because you get to. That's what you paid for. You paid for a brand new home. So why should you move into a home that has nicks, dings, and scratches from the construction guys that were working on the house? So that's something you need to make sure you do. And then make sure you get any warranties squared away. A lot of times builders will just pass through the manufacturer warranty on like your appliances, your water heaters, your air handlers, your AC systems, all that stuff. But you also want to make sure that you are getting a third-party structural warranty from the builder. Now, builders can technically provide a structural warranty through themselves. But if the builder goes out of business, that thing is worthless. So you want to get a third-party structural warranty. And sometimes there are timelines when that has to be done from completion. So for example, if you were to buy a completed new construction home, oftentimes that third-party warranty has to be put in place within 30 days of closing on that home. So you might want to look into, okay, if I am buying a home from a builder or they're building a home for me, which third-party warranty company will warranty this builder's work? And make sure that you pay for that or get that in writing, because the big thing that typically includes is a 10-year structural warranty. So if anything were to happen with your foundation or your foundation failed, that's the type of thing that you want that to cover. So 1, do your final walk with the builder. Be as picky as he'll let you be, which is typically you can be pretty picky. And then 2, then make sure all your warranties are in place, especially the third-party structural warranty. Okay, the 7th and final step in this process is putting your long-term financing in place. And I haven't spent a lot of time talking about financing, but in order to get this far, you would have had to have bought the land. You could pay cash or get a loan. Then you would have had to get a construction loan to pay the builder throughout the process. So now you might have a loan on the land and you might have a temporary loan for construction loan that might be interest only. And you need to refinance to put like a 30-year mortgage in place that would be very similar to if you had bought a home. But what's important to note is that they're not just going to refinance whatever you have out. They're going to run an appraisal to make sure that your home is valued correctly, and they're only going to lend you money based on the appraisal that was done. So if you overbuilt, maybe you built a $1.2 million home, like it cost you $1.2 million, and they might come in and say, well, hey, this home in this market is actually only worth $1 million. So they're gonna base the loan they give you on $1 million valuation. And so there's a potential that when you go to refinance, you actually have to bring additional money down at the closing of your refinance. So, this is a really important step that goes back to the first couple of steps, is making sure that you're building a home in the appropriate budget range, because you don't want to be underwater on a brand new home. So that's really important. And one thing to note, and I mentioned it earlier, is that as of this recording, in the market that we're in, building is pretty expensive. So I have a home in the Stone Creek neighborhood that I am the listing agent on, and I'm helping clients sell right now. And we had an open house for that, and a neighbor came in, and he is actually a custom home builder, and he's building homes out in the Possum Kingdom area. We had some conversation. They just wanted to kind of see what was going on in the neighborhood. And as we were leaving, he said, Jared, what a lot of people don't know right now is that you can buy homes for a lot cheaper than you can build the same home. So he goes, for homes like the one I was selling, and it's already under contract, it's going to close. For homes that are high quality homes, it's cheaper to buy an existing home if you can find one that fits your needs than it is to build. Now, if you have the cash and you are willing to pay a premium to build a brand new home, you can do that. But for someone who might be, on a budget or doesn't want to overpay, for example, us, I told you that me and my wife, we had considered building and what that would look like. And we had done all the plans and the construction, and we were getting ready to pull the trigger and sign with the builder. And we realized that best case scenario, our home was going to be worth exactly what we paid to build it. So if any overages happened, if anything increased in price, we would be underwater and we could buy a home for the same price. And for us in particular, we happened to buy at a really good time. We got a really good deal. We actually got a home that fit all of our needs. It wasn't the exact maybe layout that we had thought, but it 4-bedroom, 3-bath, plus an office, all this stuff. And we got it for like $100,000 less than it was going to cost us to build the other home we'd been looking at. So if you're patient, oftentimes you can find a pre-existing home, but this is what is important to note. It is possible to spend more money than a home is actually worth when you build it, especially in the market we're in. So that's just a scary process. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's the importance of working with people who know what they're doing early in the process to make sure that you're building a home that's worth what you pay for it. Okay, now you may have gotten to the end of this video and you're like, I kind of feel like Jared's trying to talk me out of building a little bit. And to be honest, I kind of am. A lot of people like the idea of building and it's not the right fit for them. But here's the deal. If I can't talk you out of doing something, that means you are the right person to do that. So if you got to the end of this video and all of the concerns I brought up don't faze you and you still want to build, you're the exact person who should be building their dream home. So whether you're thinking about moving next week or next year, all my contact information is in the description box below. Feel free to reach out however is most convenient. I'm looking forward to helping you build your dream home in the Aledo area.